I'm 84 years old, and I just realized I spent 58 years married to someone I never loved, and it destroyed both of us. My name is Beatrice. I'm 84, and my husband Charles died 6 months ago. We were married for 58 years, and at his funeral, standing there listening to people talk about what a devoted couple we were, I felt nothing. No grief, no loss, just relief. And that's when I finally admitted the truth I'd been hiding my whole adult life. I never loved him. I married him because he was stable, because he was safe, because everyone said he was a good choice. And that decision ruined 2 lives. I need to tell you this story because I see young people making the same choice I made, choosing partners based on logic instead of feeling, choosing stability over passion, choosing what makes sense on paper over what makes their heart beat faster. And they think they're being smart, being mature, being realistic, but they're making the same mistake I made. And they're going to wake up decades later and realize they wasted their life pretending to feel something they never felt. Let me take you back to 1962. I was 22 years old. I just graduated from college with a teaching degree. I was living at home with my parents in Ohio, and I was dating a man named James. James was everything I wanted. He was exciting, creative, unpredictable. He played guitar in a band, had big dreams about moving to New York and making it in music. He made me laugh, made me feel alive, and when I was with him, I felt like anything was possible. I loved him, really loved him. The kind of love where you can't stop thinking about someone, where your whole body feels different when they walk in a room, where you'd give up anything just to be near them. But James had no money, no stable job, no clear path forward. He was chasing a dream that probably wouldn't work out. And my parents hated him, said he was irresponsible, said he'd never be able to provide for a family, said I'd regret throwing my life away on someone with no future. I'd known Charles since high school. He was 2 years older than me, had graduated college and gotten a job as an accountant, was already making decent money, came from a good family, was responsible and reliable and everything my parents wanted for me. Charles had asked me out a few times over the years. I'd always said no because I wasn't interested. He was nice, but boring. Conversations with him felt like work. There was no spark, no excitement, no chemistry. But after I graduated, Charles asked me out again, and my mother pushed me to say yes, said I should, give him a real chance, said James was a phase, but Charles was the kind of man you build a life with. So I went out with Charles, and it was fine. He was polite, took me to a nice restaurant, talked about his job and his plans for the future. He was stable, predictable, safe. My mother asked how it went. I told her it was fine, but I didn't feel anything for him. She said feelings weren't the most important thing, that passion fades, but stability lasts, that I needed to think about my future, about having a secure life, about finding a man who could provide. I kept seeing Charles because it made my parents happy, kept seeing James because he made me happy, and I was torn between what I wanted and what everyone said I should want. James asked me to move to New York with him, said his band had a chance at a record deal, said he wanted to marry me, wanted to build a life together. It wouldn't be easy. We'd be poor at first, but we'd be together. We'd be happy. I wanted to say yes so badly, but I was terrified of disappointing my parents, terrified of being poor, terrified of taking a risk that might not work out, terrified of choosing passion over security. Charles proposed 3 months later, got down on one knee at a nice restaurant, had a ring, said he'd take care of me, give me a good life, a stable life. And I said yes, not because I loved him, not because I wanted to marry him, but because it was the safe choice, the responsible choice, the choice everyone approved of. I told James the next day. He was devastated, asked if I loved Charles. I couldn't answer. He said that was answer enough. He moved to New York without me, and I married Charles 6 months later. The wedding was beautiful. Everyone said I was lucky to be marrying such a good man. My mother cried happy tears. My father gave a toast about Charles being the son he never had, and I stood there in my white dress feeling nothing. The honeymoon was awkward. Charles was gentle and respectful, but there was no passion, no desire. I went through the motions, closed my eyes, and pretended I was somewhere else with someone else. We moved into a small house in the suburbs. Charles went to work every day. I got a job teaching at the local elementary school. We had dinner together every night, went to church on Sundays, did everything couples were supposed to do. But I felt dead inside, like I was playing a role instead of living a life, like I was watching someone else's marriage instead of being in my own. I thought it would get better, thought feelings would develop, thought I'd grow to love him. But years passed and nothing changed. Charles was a good man, a good provider, a good husband by every objective measure, but I didn't love him, didn't desire him, didn't feel anything real for him. We had our first child in 1965, a daughter, Susan, then a son, Michael, in 1967. I poured myself into being a mother, thought maybe that would fill the emptiness, and it helped. I loved my children desperately, but it didn't change how I felt about Charles. Charles loved me, really loved me, and I knew it. Could see it in how he looked at me, how he tried to make me happy, how he worked hard to give us a good life, and it made me feel guilty because I couldn't give him the same thing back. I was a good wife on paper, cooked, cleaned, raised the children, was faithful, was supportive, did everything I was supposed to do, but emotionally I was absent, going through motions without real feeling. Charles would try to connect, would ask what I was thinking, would reach for my hand, would try to have deep conversations, and I'd give him nothing. Surface level responses, polite distance. I couldn't give him more because there wasn't more to give. I'd lie in bed next to him at night and feel completely alone, feel trapped, feel like I was slowly suffocating. And I'd think about James, wonder what my life would have been like if I'd been brave enough to choose love over security. I looked James up once in the 1980s, found out his band never made it big, but he'd become a successful session musician in New York, had married someone else, had kids, seemed happy. And I felt this overwhelming grief for the life I could have had. The years blurred together. Susan and Michael grew up. Charles got promotions. We moved to a bigger house, went on family vacations. From the outside, we looked like the perfect family, but inside I was dying. Charles knew something was wrong, would ask if I was happy. I'd say yes, because what else could I say? That I'd never loved him, that I'd married him for security and regretted it every day? That would destroy him. So I lied and kept lying year after year. Susan got married in 1987, Michael in 1989. They both moved away, started their own families. And suddenly it was just me and Charles in a big empty house with nothing to distract from the fact that we had no real relationship. Charles tried harder, suggested date nights, romantic getaways, talked about finally having time for just us. And I felt panic because pretending was exhausting and I'd been doing it for 30 years. I threw myself into work, volunteered at church, found reasons to be busy, anything to avoid being alone with him, with the reality of what our marriage actually was. Charles would look hurt when I made excuses, would say he felt like he was losing me. And I wanted to scream that he never had me to begin with, that I'd been a ghost in this marriage from day one. But I stayed quiet. I thought about leaving so many times. Thought about just walking away, starting over, living the rest of my life alone, but at least honestly. But I was too afraid, too worried about what people would think, too guilty about hurting Charles, too comfortable in the security I'd chosen all those years ago. So I stayed, and the decades passed, and I felt myself becoming more and more hollow, like there was nothing left of who I used to be, like I'd sacrificed myself so completely for this safe, stable, loveless life that there was no me anymore, just the role I played. Charles retired at 65. I retired at 63. And suddenly we were together all the time. No work to escape to, no children to focus on. Just the two of us and 40 years of pretending. He'd try to hold my hand and I'd find a reason to move it. He'd try to kiss me and I'd turn my head. He'd tell me he loved me and I'd say it back, but the words felt like ash in my mouth. I could see it breaking him, could see the hurt and confusion, could see him wondering what he'd done wrong. And the answer was nothing. He'd done nothing wrong. I was the problem. I'd always been the problem, because you can't make yourself love someone, no matter how good they are, no matter how hard you try. Charles got sick 2 years ago. Cancer. The doctor said it was aggressive. That treatment would be hard, and I took care of him, drove him to appointments, made sure he took his medicine, held his hand in hospital rooms, played the role of devoted wife one more time. He died 6 months ago. At home, in our bed, his last words were, "I love you." And I said, "I love you too." One final lie to send him off. The funeral was huge. So many people came. Everyone talked about what a wonderful man he was, what a devoted husband, what a perfect marriage we had. And I stood there feeling like a fraud, like I'd stolen 58 years from a man who deserved someone who actually loved him. After everyone left and I was alone in the house, I felt relief. And then I felt crushing guilt for feeling relief. And then I felt grief, not for losing Charles, but for wasting my entire adult life, for choosing security over love, for being too afraid to live honestly. I'm 84 years old now. I've been living alone for 6 months. And for the first time in 58 years, I feel like I can breathe. But it's too late. My life is over. I wasted it on a choice I made at 22 because I was too afraid to choose what I actually wanted. I think about James sometimes. He died 5 years ago. I saw the obituary, never got to tell him that he was the love of my life, that I should have gone to New York, that I've thought about him for 6 decades. That choosing stability over him was the biggest mistake I ever made. I think about Charles and I feel terrible. He deserved someone who loved him, who wanted him, who lit up when he walked in the room. Instead, he got me. Someone going through the motions, someone giving him a performance instead of real love. I wasted his life too. I see my grandchildren getting married now, making choices about partners, and I want to shake them. Want to tell them that security isn't enough, that stability isn't worth it if there's no love, that you can't build a real life with someone you're not actually in love with. But they wouldn't listen, just like I didn't listen, because when you're young, you think you can make it work, think feelings will develop, think love is optional as long as everything else lines up, but it's not. Love is the only thing that matters. Everything else is just details. And if you marry someone you don't love, you're choosing to live a lie. And that lie will poison everything, will turn you into a shell, will waste your one precious life on pretending. I'm 84 and I'm married for stability. And I lost myself, lost any chance at real happiness, lost 58 years to a choice I made when I was too young and scared to know better. Don't make my mistake. Subscribe if this hit you harder than you expected.